Hello everyone, I hope you are all doing incredibly well. Welcome to the FF Virtual Arena where we are hosting you today. Today's FF Arena, we're going to be looking at the road to success for open banking. So joining me on the panel today, first of all from Worldline, we have Tom Wijnen. Tom, I was practicing before we went live with this. Did I get that right? Tom Wijnen from Worldline. How are you doing today, Tom? Whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm situated in Utrecht, so.
I love Utrecht. Incredible canals there. I know everyone thinks of Amsterdam, but Utrecht's got that wonderful bit where it's a little bit sort of sunk
Exactly.
down.
We call it the Little Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Love it. And also joining us, and I've been very excited to be able to say this, we have two-time FF award winner Neonomics' International Business Development Director. We have Nick Hartvig. Nick, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. Hope you too.
And you're in Norway?
I'm actually in Frankfurt.
Ah, excellent.
Yep. I am a Scandinavian, but I've been living in Germany for 20 years.
Well, I want to know more about both of you, so let's go right into it. Nick, first of all, can you just give us a little bit of, I want to know a little bit more about yourself, a little bit more about Neonomics, but you're kind of at the level, I want to know why open banking appeals to you.
Yeah, as I said, my name is Nick Hartvig, and as you also said, I'm the International Business Development Director for Neonomics and leading our efforts in Germany. I have 20 years experience working in the financial industry across various European markets, and I had viewed the open banking sector from the outside with a lot of curiosity. And I joined Neonomics because I see the entire space as game-changing, as the efficiency that is being built today would be the underpinnings of the financial services we take for granted tomorrow. And I have to say it was too exciting of an opportunity to pass it up.
I like that. I can see that. I mean, some of the things in open banking are kind of, I like it when they become the elements you don't even think about anymore. Tom, can I get a little bit more about yourself and this little company called Worldline, but also your view on open banking?
Yeah, it's not a little company. It's the European leader in payments, as we always call ourselves, which is actually the case. We are fourth player worldwide, and I'm Tom Wijnen. I'm a senior product marketing manager within Worldline, and responsible for the strategy on open banking. So also involved from the beginning in open banking. As you know, Worldline calls themselves the global paytech leader. That means that we are really a technical company, and also always looking at innovation and new things to build. I think we have a quite unique position because we are both working on the sides of banks. That's more our financial services part, as well as on the merchants side. And what we try to do is connect these, and open banking, of course, is perfectly for that. So once PSD2 came into place, we have looked at the opportunity indeed to become the connector between the merchants and the banks.
Absolutely. What I find fascinating about financial services is there was a period of time where banks, for example, were very castle-like. They had nice big high walls, everything was in-house, everything was on-prem. And now, through the advent of a variety of technologies, including, of course, open banking, those walls have come down. It's now very much more of an environment, a forest, an ecosystem. And it is all about collaboration and partnership to go that extra mile. See, Neonomics and Worldline, you've had a partnership since November. Could you walk us through that a little bit around what you're working on together and why it's a good fit? And Nick, I'll go to you first for this.
Yeah, the partnership that we have is focused on strengthening our joint open banking offerings across Europe. And as you said, open banking has come a long way the last 2 to 3 years. And the baseline of our collaboration is technical quality. And to avoid being too jargon heavy and to speak plainly, we have built the foundation of a much more efficient payment infrastructure that is facilitating the transition that we are seeing today to a more efficient way of delivering financial services.
Absolutely. Tom, do you want to weigh in here in terms of the Neonomics partnership?
Yeah, I completely agree with Nick. I mean, we are complementary in reach, so we are active in different parts of the continent, I would say. But we do have the same approach, the same qualitative approach concerning APIs. What you see a lot in this market is that our competitors are just passing through things. We call an API and we pass it through. And that's not the way that both our companies work. We work with normalized data, with unified APIs, which is of a much better quality than you see in the market.
Let's expand on this thing around unified APIs. What does that mean? Because I guess in terms of you kind of almost have the base level of just passing information along. What is it about your approach to APIs that sets you different in the market?
Yeah. So what is key in PSD2? So every bank has to expose their APIs to the market, but they do that in a different way with different fields, with different. It is sort of to say there's no standard. And so what we do and what Neonomics does is that we get that API from the bank, we read this information and put that in a data model where you have a similar, where you have the same, where you have just one label on the same data, and that really helps our customers to say, okay, I have this data, it's unified, it's normalized, and then I can use it a lot better than if you get all different data fields from different banks. Because then you have different data which you cannot work with, you cannot put together, you cannot aggregate it.
With us, our partners get one point that they connect to, and we make sure that all the connections to the banks are working and the services that we provide together are working. So we are the ones making sure that the differences that there are from the banks and the different markets works for our customers.
One of the things I find fascinating about open banking, especially when it was announced, is that, I mean, there's obviously some challenges for a variety of banks out there with this. What are some of the challenges we're seeing in open banking to make it a success, and how do you, together in partnership, how do you look to solve these challenges? Nick, I'll go to you first with this.
Yeah, in Europe, it is necessary that it requires the collaboration between different stakeholders. So it's the banks, the regulators, technology providers, merchants, to name a few of them, in order to drive innovation and adoption. And that we want to do together with Worldline. It has been and continues to be a catch-all buzzword, open banking, doesn't it? And we are increasingly seeking to focus our discussions on the needs of the market, which are pushing for cost-efficient, stable offerings that can work together, and in many cases also outcompete other payment alternatives. I mean, regulators are always playing catch up, and increasingly large multinational merchants are being able to usher the major stakeholders to the table to move the market towards offering more efficient service. But it's all about efficiency.
I like that. Tom, did you want to weigh in here? What are some of the what are some of the challenges out there, and how are you looking to solve these ones?
Yeah, there are many challenges still. We are already 5 years on the road of getting this open banking done, and still there are many challenges. Like Nick said, there are challenges on the regulatory side and on the side of the let's say the harmonization of the rulings. And what we found out, and you mentioned it in the beginning as well, we were talking about open ecosystems. So you can try to change the PSD2, but that's not enough. You should also look at other regulatory topics like GDPR, the privacy regulation. In the meantime, you also see that there is an instant payment regulation coming up, an identity regulation. Everything is changing, and it all needs to fit together. So that's one thing. I think besides what we already mentioned, the technical difference, the different standards, but also the performance of the APIs. Like Nick said, our customers expect efficient, effective services. So also the performance from the bank APIs need to be there. Things like we are now talking about a standard payment initiation service, a standard account information services. If you look at our customers, they want to have additional things on top of it. They want to have, I don't know, spread payments, BNPL, a payment guarantee, a refund, etc., etc. So that's also something that you need to look at and provide as a service provider. One of the key topics that we see why the open banking is not flying is that, especially on the bank side, there seems to be not a motivation to go into open banking. And there are a few banks that are active, but a lot of banks are really waiting. So they are not motivated, they're not incentivized to really explore the opportunities of open banking, and that's really a key point that needs to change.
I can also add to that, because engagement from the banks is really important, independent of the regulatory push, right? Because this is key to have the whole segment, the whole business thrive, because banks are the only stakeholders that can influence the rest of the market so directly in moving into a specific direction. And the more that they embrace this change and working closer with the rest of us, with the stakeholders, the better off our customers will actually be. Competition will create better services across the board, but I mean, the building blocks are there, but it really needs to work, and we need to get the banks more involved.
Yeah, indeed. I can, for example, Worldline is mainly a payment company. So payment is currently dominated by cards, by the cards schemes. And what you see, they're already there for decades. So their user experience in cards is really good, especially if you can tap your card on a how do you say, on a POS, on a device, or you can put your card in a mobile, a virtual card. So from a payment perspective, we need to be competitive to those kinds of payment experiences. My conviction is that PIS, so the payment initiation service, so open banking, together with the instant payments, could really become such a competitor. But then it needs to be really of a high quality. Like we said, the performance on the APIs should be there. The user experience should be there. It is feasible, but like Nick said, we have to work together. The banks, the aggregators, the intermediate, and the merchants have to work together to make this happen.
Can we expand a little bit? We were talking around kind of some of the motivation for banks of this. Obviously, the best way for motivation is revenue and profit. Can we just expand a little bit around some of the business model on the bank side? How can they monetize this? How can things like PSD2 open banking, how can this be a fiscal benefit for the banks?
Yeah, I can. There are different ways of doing this. So, like open banking has a payment service, and you have data related services. So the account information services. On the payments, one normally says, yeah, but it's just payment. It is an account-based payment, but it's just another payment. It's next to the cards and other payments. I tend to disagree there. So for a payment, you can do, for account-based payments, you can do things like buy now, pay later, and giving one-time consent. You can have a future-dated payment. So there are possibilities. You can even brand your payment, as is already done by some retailers. So there are things you can do there. On the other hand, the data-related use cases are interesting, because here you can use the data that's on an account to better profile a customer. So there are really a lot of opportunities there, and banks have bank apps where they can put these payments and these data-related services in. They have already a lot of banks have very good banking apps, so they can create services for their customers around these open banking topics. And the first examples are there, but it's really very scarce. So there's not many banks that are doing that. And for these data-related services, you always have to keep in mind you have to have something that you and me as a consumer, as a user of the bank app, is interesting for. And there are things like getting incentives based on your behavior, getting personalized offerings. That's a way to go forward. So there are really opportunities for banks to make money around these open banking features.
Nick?
I fully agree. The question here, the topic is personalized financial services, which is much more possible with open banking. Also, a topic could be security or fraud in payments that is on the rise. And open banking is a great way to prevent fraud and identity theft. But it could also go to non-financial parts as well, even with the banks playing a role where integration of financial services into non-financial applications. And here the possibilities are endless and can get great value to customers while generating new revenue streams as well. So there are a lot of possibilities.
Absolutely. You mentioned, and you know what, we're going to go into this because this is one of those nice, easy questions. So it's definitely not a day-long topic in its own. You're talking a little bit about fraud, but also talking a little bit about the user experience. Can we just bring up strong customer authentication? Because that, my lord, is that fine line between delivering a seamless user experience, but also preventing fraud. So what are some of the challenges with the user experience with having like two-factor authentication or having to put in your PIN, numbers, etc.? How do you kind of work on that balance within the open banking framework?
Yeah, so secure customer authentication is difficult because there are different models that you have in the different countries. So that's already something. But what I always say is, if you have, for example, a payment, everybody's talking about frictionless, so without any friction. On the other hand, you can also have a friction in a good way, in a sense that says, okay, but now I just stop and really want to be sure that you want to make this payment. So some kind of friction is not bad. So if you look at it from that perspective, if a certain friction is okay, then you should make it, you should have a solution in place which is giving as less friction as possible. And in the identity area, you see things coming up like biometrics. There are multiple ways of identifying, and that gives you a possibility to have this, very low friction of secure customer authentication. And I mentioned before that regulation on eIDAS is also going forward, using where there needs to be an identity, what is it called, an identity wallet from every how do you say that? Every country has to provide such a wallet. And that needs to be used in the future for every transaction that requires secure customer authentication. If such a wallet is there, and you can integrate it easily into this process, then I think we have a seamless experience for the payment or for getting the account information service data.
Absolutely. Nick, did you want to weigh in there around SCA?
Yeah, the whole thing about user experience for the customer is here very, very important. So the processes needs to be as simple as possible. And there is also the question about education. So open banking is relatively new and customers still needs to understand how it works and how it benefits them, right? So education is something that we need to provide also in cooperation with our merchants. So for example, with identification, when a user meets an open banking checkout solution, they know what it is about and understand that it's a better and safer choice than they have with other payment alternatives. So there is also this part about making and bringing this new open banking payment service to the customers as well. And that needs to be something that we work together with all the participants on.
Excellent. Let's look at stuff that is going live. Where do you think some of the strongest cases lie in the next year? I would love some examples. I'm going to go with you first this time, Nick. Where are some of the a good example? Where do you think some of the strongest use cases lie for the next year?
Personalized financial services is definitely something that is going to grow. It's already a trend in many industries, and open banking really supports this to provide customers personalized financial services. And embedded finance, integration of financial services into non-financial applications. And here the possibilities really are endless.
Absolutely. Tom, do you have, where do you think some of the strong use cases are going to lie over the next year?
Yeah, well, it should not come as a surprise. Worldline being a pay tech, we are looking mainly at the payments. So what you see so far is that the payments that were facilitated by the open banking for the PSD2 are in the e-commerce sphere. But we are convinced that it will also enter into the in-store environment. It already does so here and there. And then it's key, as was mentioned before, that the user experience has to be very good and very smooth. So that's one, and that's on top of that, we see also the possibility how to use buy now, pay later functionality with the payments, but also future dated payments and those kind of things. On the data related use cases, I agree with Nick. It's mainly on the personalized offerings. So far, we have seen it nowadays. It's a lot used with things like risk profiling, to be able to get loans out and mortgages and those kind of things. But for the sake of consumer adoption, I think it would be good if it also we think it should go into the direction where you provide really value add for the customer, so that that things indeed get personalized, that you try to give these customer incentives based upon account data, because in the account data you can exactly see what somebody buys and where does he buy it. So it's really gives a lot of insight into where his spendings are and how you can stimulate it to spend at your store, so to say.
I like that, and that can also tie us in with some potential business models and such as well. Let's look to the future. So, what from where you're sat, what should change to have open banking absolutely thrive? What would be needed to make this open API approach the norm and thrive everywhere? Nick, I'll go to yourself first in this.
I touched upon this point a little bit already. Mainly the engagement from the banks. That is what is really necessary, because they are the ones that can influence the rest of it. They are the ones that can have a directly impact. And again, I think they will also start to embrace this change, and they will also look at their own customers and will realize that the more that they work together with us, with the other stakeholders, the better off it will be for everybody. You are seeing that in the UK also, that a couple of banks have started working directly in order to build products based on open banking. And that is the direction that we need to go. When the more that we get this up and running and working, the better it will be for everybody.
I like that. What about yourself, Tom?
Yeah, I agree there. It's really key that everybody starts working together in this ecosystem. Often we look at the regulator, and I think the regulator can play a role here, because they started with the PSD2 saying you have to do this. It's more like a thing like you are mandatory to do this. That is not a very good motivation. So I think maybe they can now evaluate that and look at how can I incentivize every market party to really jump in and work on really the value added areas that can be provided with this regulation. So not only harmonization, but also look at the quality of the APIs of the product. So that's one thing. And on the other side, but I think they're already doing that, is try to stimulate the initiatives that are in the market. So we see that open banking suggests that everything has to be open. That is good. I also believe in open ecosystems. On the other hand, you see there's sometimes also a very good reason to form a scheme, to really try to get some rules laid down between the parties so that it works better. So the European Commission or the politics could indeed try to stimulate those initiatives, get participants motivated to work on these groundwork of open banking and to work together in the form of a scheme, in the form of, I don't know, any other things. And like I said before, that is not just by amending or having a new PSD2, having a new, let's say, PSD3 in place, but also look at other things like GDPR, like the instant payment regulation, the eIDAS that we talked about, the identity. So both from a legal perspective, a technical perspective, and a business perspective.
Very well said. It's not about almost not about the actual wording of the regulation itself. It is about the kind of the ethos behind it and the thought process behind it.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak with us today. Tom, where best to reach out to yourself and find out more? Are you on Be Real?
Am I on Be Real? I'm sorry.
It's the new social media thing.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm 50 plus. Sorry.
What's your TikTok channel? Well, Tom, where can I find out more about yourself and where best to get in contact with yourself?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, so no problem. Tom Wijnen indeed in Worldline. And they can also be reached for tom.wijnen@worldline.com.
Excellent. And Nick, where best to find out more about yourself and Neonomics?
I'm also on LinkedIn, but just go to Neonomics' website homepage and just look there. You can book meetings, and I will reach out to anybody who wants to get in contact immediately.
Brilliant, excellent. Thank you all so much. I hope we've learned a lot more about the success of open banking. I've been your host, Ali Paterson from FF News. We'll see you all very soon.